All right, we are back for episode 58 of Digital Divination. My question is this the last episode?
Wait, the last episode? No, 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 no. I hope not.
Yeah, I
I
hope
hope
not.
not. It is, however, the last episode for me. I am going to have to leave you, John, on this digital divination adventure we've been on for 58 episodes.
I know, I'm so bummed about that. And, oh man, uh, can you tell our audience why you have to leave our show?
I'm taking a new position with a different company. They have asked me to not announce my employment there until my start date. That actually makes a lot of sense. I remember that's been the rule at some other places I've worked at in the
Yeah.
past. So if you haven't seen any like splashy announcements from me on social media, they've asked me to kind of keep it, keep it to myself until I'm actually on my first day there.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
so there's things to be done, a little paperwork to be finished up between now and then. So no big promises yet, but I have already turned in my resignation at Paizo. I'm going to be at PaizoCon this upcoming weekend. That'll be an awful lot of fun, but it's also an
Mhm.
opportunity for me to say goodbye to the people I've spent 4.5 years working with.
Right. Wow. And, why do you have to stop doing the podcast, though? Just because 'cause you're changing companies? Come on.
It's a requirement of the position that I have, the position that I'm taking. A reasonable position, right? I'm no longer working on my own branding. I'm working on their branding, and I can certainly understand that. Now, this actually in a lot of it reminds me quite a bit of my previous career when I've been working as an attorney. I mean, nobody
Mhm.
knows which attorneys are on stuff for transactional work. Litigators tend to kind of get the big name litigators get their names out there,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
people that are working on mergers and acquisitions and other, very big, sometimes very lucrative deals, we work back in the background. We work in the shadows.
Mhm.
We don't make big announcements about who we are or what we're doing. Now, that admittedly that may have changed in the increasing world of social media since I've been deeply involved in that.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
yeah, it's an entirely understandable requirement. But what it does mean is that I have to say goodbye, John. So
Yes.
digital
Wow.
divination. It's been years. We're past episode 52, which means we're more
Yes.
than 2 years into it, but not
No,
quite
but
two and a
you
half. Is that right?
you said we were gonna get to 100 though when we hit that, and it's like,
I mean,
oh,
we collectively, as the people behind it and listeners, of which I will become one.
yes, yes. Oh,
So, will
man.
digital divination get to
Yeah.
100? Well, yeah, I certainly hope so.
Yeah, well, I wanna keep it going, and, I wanna keep talking with you. We joked about this saying, we have so much fun just doing this. Why don't we do this anyway and just not record it? And then so we can
Well,
up
I
and
mean, we're
things.
we're not going to
Yeah.
cease being friends, John. We're
Yes. Oh, I know. It's but,
I
the
remind you about our planned
yeah.
barbecue in mid-June. We're not
Yes. Yes.
we're not
Yes.
breaking up, John. It's not you, it's me. It's yeah.
I know, I know. This has just been a lot of fun, and I just can't imagine where I would find another co-host, another partner that would be as much fun as you.
Well, what do you think?
Well, my top choice would have been, and I actually, kind of gave him a trial run, was, Jake Tondro,
Oh,
but
no, that's yeah. Oh, I
he's
remember that. That's right. When I was gone and you needed a show, you
yeah,
had Jake fill in. That was a
yeah,
super interesting episode. He's very
yeah.
engaging.
I thought he was really good. I thought, "Oh, man, if something ever happens to Ron or I'll just get Jake," and, oh, Jake's not available anymore.
He is not. He's working at Wizards of the Coast, and Wizards of the
Yes.
Coast has certain requirements on your availability to be on
Right.
podcasts and things like that. So he is not available.
Yes,
Um,
yes. So, man, what are we
remain.
gonna
I mean, but
do?
he's also. I mean, we're still friends still,
Oh,
right? I
I
still talk to
know.
him,
Yeah,
and
we'll still hang out and
we
do
just can't
stuff,
have
but
him displaying his wit for all to hear on the Digital Divination show.
I know, or anywhere, right?
Oh no, he's displaying his. I presume he's displaying his wit in the upcoming books of Dungeons and Dragons, since he's a
Oh,
senior designer
okay.
there.
Alright. Yeah, that's not the same thing as, like, talking to people though, is it?
you're
I mean,
no, you're right. It is not the same thing in that the wit that the designers display goes through
Yes.
at any gaming company goes through
Yeah.
several rounds of editing, and
Yeah.
one of the things that is perhaps most amusing about us is that we don't go through any editing at all. It's just you get the unvarnished
Yeah.
Sean and
Yes.
Ron.
Yes, yes. Oh, I mean, there's a tiny bit of editing, you know. I remember I interviewed somebody and, they dropped an F-bomb, and Ryan was very, very emphatic about having to edit that out, so,
Okay, okay.
and actually one of our actual plays, there was one as well, and
Ooh,
yeah, I didn't even notice it, I remember it, when it happened, you know, in the game. It was at my house we were playing, right? And then I remember, "Oh, yeah, I better edit that out." But then I edit, like, 6 months later, and it's like, "Okay, it just sounds like it's going on," and I completely missed it, and then, Ryan got very "Oh, you need to get in there right away and delete this
so you
little
you
blurb."
went back and pulled it down and edited it and put
Yeah.
it back up again? Is that right?
Yes. I did,
Was it
I did.
one of the End on a Flame episodes?
It was. It
Well,
was
that was a
yes.
very tense set of
Yes.
encounters too. We were,
Yeah.
I mean, we were really on the ropes, I think, in a lot of that. So
But it
maybe
wasn't
the
us
tensions were a
dropping the
little high.
F-bomb, let me just say, it was somebody
That's true.
else.
That's true. Uh, but the
Oh,
yeah, that's I do appreciate that. I was just talking to somebody today who is not doesn't curse an awful lot. I don't,
yeah.
but oh boy, do my kids know that when dad swears, things are serious. So um,
I will admit, having been a sailor in a former life, that I can swear with the best of them, and I did for a long
mm,
time, and, my wife didn't really care for that. I generally didn't do it around the house, but,
mm.
I did a lot of online gaming, and I would swear a lot during that, and,
Oh,
apparently that's loud even though my office door is closed, and so, yeah, she said, "You need to quit doing that, you know, the kids can hear all that stuff you're saying," and, "Oh, okay, well," so
well,
I
yeah, you
kinda
get
got out of that habit, so
oh, good, probably for the best. So it's true then
yeah,
the swear like a sailor phrase.
very much so, very
Oh
much so.
wow.
I wasn't as colorful as some people have some really good stuff. Oh man, you know, does this mean you have to like cease all your other side work too?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm wrapping up some projects that I'm on now. I can't go into specifics because they haven't been announced yet. But I will say
Mm,
that the last two projects I have are a Starfinder project that you're also working on. So these sort of wink at
yes.
each other. Oh, back before we were in video, we could actually do that, and but now everybody will see that they're yeah,
Yes.
wink, John. We know
Yeah.
what we're talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
And then I've also picked up a Pathfinder adventure path. The author had a change of plans at the last moment, and we were sort of scrambling. I'm like, you know what? Assign it to me. I can go ahead and do it. And that's proven to be it. And not only is it fun to do, and it's going quickly. I feel like I'm good at it because I've been writing Pathfinder Adventure Path volumes and developing them for years. But it's also giving me an opportunity to put sort of the last spin that I have on some of the encounters. I'll have to admit that I always tend to lean towards including monsters that I designed
Yeah.
as the things that people fight, and
Yeah.
treasure that
Yeah.
I designed as things
Mhm.
that people pick up. And this
Mhm.
is my last opportunity to do that. The
Yes.
first Pathfinder adventure, but the first adventure path that I ever wrote, Adventure Path volume, was it was the choking tower for the Iron Gods adventure path, so it was very
Wow.
tech.
Yeah.
And to be honest, this isn't the right adventure to be kind of a callback for that. But the last Starfinder adventure that I did, because
Mhm.
that's very tech, being Starfinder, I was able to have a couple of callbacks to my very first adventure. That's been kind of fun.
Oh, and that's been announced, so
It has
should we
Masters of
be
Time and Space is Drift
yeah.
Crashers number 3.
So we should be looking for some callbacks. Are they pretty obvious?
No, no, not at all. No, they're
Oh,
really for me, not not necessarily for other people.
okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but I will say one of the phrases that shows up a lot in almost all of the adventures that I write is run amok. You know, Run Amok
Yes.
Games is the third party company that I have,
Yeah.
and so I usually drop in a mention about somebody running amok or something like
Yeah.
that, or technology run amok. Things
Mhm.
to slip that in. I mean, it's a legitimate phrase that I use in day to
Yes.
day conversation as well, but I do my best to work that in.
And what happens to run amok? Well, your blog and your company and
It just stays. I'm going to sort of shutter that. That's actually you. I've sort of shut that down last year for a little bit anyway. I had a lot of
right.
other things going on in my life. I was doing some legal work on the side that was very time consuming, very fun, but very time consuming. And I knew ahead of time that I wouldn't be able to keep the blog pace up. So
Mhm.
I sort of shuttered it then, brought it back for a couple of things, promote the Kickstarter that I did,
Right.
provide another couple pieces of advice that I thought were really timely. But that's not going to be very difficult for me to then go back to shutting down again. It'll still be there. You can still go see it. I just won't be posting anything else on it.
Right. Right. Now, you also one of the things that kept you busy then is you were running for public office. You gonna be allowed to do that?
That is a legitimate question. I I don't know. I don't
Uh,
know. I certainly won't want to. The first little while
yeah.
of any job is ramping up and learning,
Yeah.
who's who and the policies of the new workplace, in addition to having to understand, the work that you're actually going to be doing. So I really,
Mhm.
I have part of the advantage of sort of clearing the deck of everything else that I've got going on is that I can devote the time I need to get up to speed very quickly at my new job, but not be short changing, time with the family and things like
Right.
that. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Now,
Um,
have they replaced Jake Tondra already at Paizo?
no, and I don't know that they will, and I may be overstepping a little bit in some details here, but
Yeah.
what are they going to do? Fire me? Here's the issue.
Oh, you're gonna spill all the beans tonight. All right. This is great. Oh,
um, I don't know that having Jake initially the plan was Jake as a senior developer. He was going to be a senior developer, and his task as being a senior developer was to do work sort of halftime on
right.
Starfinder and halftime on Pathfinder. And one of the things that I worked very hard to make clear to everybody else, saying this isn't how you become senior developer at Paizo.
Mm,
That is to say,
right.
you don't have to master both systems and be willing to work on both systems in order to become senior developer. There will be other opportunities, and in fact, those have materialized. And now people are senior developers on both sides, the Pathfinder side and the Starfinder side,
Mhm.
without having to learn both roles. It was something that Jake embraced willingly, and we never really got a chance to try it out. He had if he was finishing up all the development on the Drift Crashers adventure path, the adventure that I
Mhm.
just mentioned, Masters of Time and Space. I wrote for him as a developer, and then he had gotten as far as concepting a Pathfinder adventure path that is not announced,
Mhm.
and getting that assigned and doing some of the very preliminary groundwork on that before he left the company. So there wasn't a robust set of work on the Pathfinder side for us to be able to fairly say, oh, this is what somebody who has done both Pathfinder and
Right.
Starfinder work are like. If anything, Thurston Hillman is the one who's been
Mhm.
doing a lot of really good work on both Pathfinder and Starfinder. He's been able to keep his hand on both rule sets, and that's just because he's kind of a master at any sort of thing that he does. His
Yeah.
concepting is just
Yeah.
just so admirable.
Mhm.
Great guy. But at any rate, we don't want to put somebody who is half of on one team and half on the other in order to
Mhm.
replace him. The idea is that maybe we'll do some shifting of the workload so we can do one and one, or maybe shift some of the workload otherwise. I think that the half and half as a let me put it this way, as a job position, it doesn't work as something that we want to maintain and keep filled. It is an opportunity that people who want to have their foot in both worlds might be able to continue to do as part of cross training. It's a good part of management in any company.
Mhm.
But but he won't. We're not replacing him as an individual who is going to do half of one thing, half of another.
Well, I was just reason why I brought it up is because now you're another senior person there that
Hmm.
will have to be replaced, and you haven't done the last one, so we should be expecting some help wanted signs up at Paizo for these positions?
I I mean, I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
From the actual getting stuff done perspective, my role had been roughly halftime management and then halftime development of adventure paths. Realistically, it was 3/4 time management and 3/4 time development of adventure paths, but that's all right. It's, both halves of that are work that I love to do.
Mhm.
But the um, but the adventure paths are going to have to be done. One big advantage that we have, anybody who's been sort of watching what Paizo's producing has seen that we've finally gotten the Kingmaker adventure path that redo out the door. It's a huge project. It took
Mhm.
a lot of people's time, but for the purposes of this discussion, it also took an awful lot of James Jacobs' time. And
Mm,
James
mhm,
Jacobs has run more adventure paths than anybody ever,
mhm,
and so that he now has some flexibility to jump in. I'm leaving at a good time in that I'm not leaving people hanging for a lot of work, right? I'm not just sort of throwing up my hands and saying, that's it, it's up to you guys. I had finished the development of substantially all of the Bloodlords adventure path, the 6-part, 1 through 20 undead intrigue adventure path.
mhm,
Um, and that was really really neat. The last adventure I have it assigned. It's in very good hands. Jessica Catalan wrote that
mhm.
last adventure and did a very good job from the initial read I did. I haven't developed it. So Adam Daigle is going to pick that up in order to develop. He's been
Hmm.
helping me all the way along through the Bloodlords adventure path, keeping everything on track. And so he's going to go ahead and finish that out. One thing I was just mentioning to him today is that actually gives him that gives him a very interesting duty benefit, I guess. All of our adventure paths, I don't know if you ever noticed this, but all of our adventure paths, Pathfinder and Starfinder, the last issue on the very last page under the credits and the printed in China, they have a little quote. And sometimes it's almost
Ah,
always a little quote that has something to
yeah.
do with the adventure. And it might be something in world, it might be something out of world. But whoever develops the last volume gets to pick what that is and gets to sort of sneak in their
Oh.
last quote. So I'm not going to be able to do that for Bloodlords. Adam said he will take under advisement any quote I prefer to add, but he's the one who's developing number 606, so he gets to pick.
Yes.
And I guess come to think of it, I don't know. I should have looked. I can actually look. The Masters of Time and Space, the third Drift Crashers one. Does that who put the quote in there? What's the quote? I'm going to go look now. I don't know what it is, but we've got that done, and it's getting finalized and sent off to the printers
Mhm.
for its release
Well, that wouldn't that
several
have
months
been
down the road.
Jake or what? Because Jake finished that one, right?
It would have been whoever did the copy fit. I think that's probably Jason
Oh,
Keeley,
okay, okay,
because it's
got
added
it.
after all the text has
I
been
see.
through its initial editing and then laid out into
Wow.
the document. And the copy fit is as you know, it's a part of it where you're making sure that all the art fits and all the
Right,
text fits on
right,
the page. That you don't have words that are overflowing or too short. Um, so it's in the copy fit phase, right near the very end of the
right.
process when you drop that in. So I'll have to see. I do want to say that the Masters of Time and Space, that third adventure, it was really fun having Jake talk to me about that because the
Yeah.
concept of it, without being really spoilery, it's a big science fiction dungeon. The
Mhm.
whole adventure is very dungeony. And Jake Tondra and I sat on a panel with Stephen Radney McFarland, also a master at this. And I want to say either Gen Con or PaizoCon a few years ago, the three of us talking about using dungeons in your adventure, what dungeons are good for, what good dungeons are like, sort of how they work conceptually with role playing. And Jake mentioned at the time he was so impressed with how I handled that subject, that topic, when we were talking about it in the panel, that when he had the space dungeon adventure, he's like, "Well, there's nobody who could write this except you, Ron. In fact, I want you to put some of the wisdom about what a dungeon is for and the different phases of
Mm.
exploring a dungeon and what it feels like around the table. Put that in there as sort of a sidebar to help lead the GMs who are reading it to here's kind of what being in dungeons are like, and this one in particular. And so I got to include that as a sidebar there. That was really fun, actually, to be able to talk a little more, I don't know, almost want to say academically, right,
Mhm.
about what the purpose of a dungeon is and any kind of role playing adventure and how it fits in this Starfinder adventure in particular.
Yeah, I knew you really liked dungeons, especially like, Abomination Vault, right? Really
Oh
like,
yeah,
the
yeah.
big mega dungeon crawl there. So, and that's interesting to hear that book is that way as well. So, maybe we still might have to play that, even though we might not record that with our group. If you're up for
Well,
that
we
kind of
already do. We already do a ton of playing. So
Oh, I
the
know,
the
I
thing I
know.
find most exciting about Drift Crashers is when it was initially concepted to me, like, okay, well,
Mhm.
here's an adventure path where the drift crash happens, and you're kind of thrown into the middle of it. You're thrown into the drift, and then you go to hell, and then there's a you end up in the far future, and then an alternate history. I'm like, wow, that sounds like a really cool adventure path. And Jake's like, no, that's just the first adventure. It just goes nuts from there.
Wow. Wow. Yeah,
So
it sounds like a metaverse all in one volume then, you know?
it does. And actually, with the new multiverse sort of hitting the multiverse concepts
Yeah.
hitting the big screen,
Yes.
Everything Everywhere All at Once is a fantastic movie. You got to see
Uh,
Doctor Strange. It really kind of touches on that in a way that is really timely, suspiciously timely, that it all happened to
yes.
work out.
Well, that I mean, given who's developing it, Dr. Comics, so that kinda makes sense a little bit, you know?
I think it does. Absolutely.
Well, good. So tell me, what will you miss about working at Paizo?
Oh, the top of the list is the people. There are a lot of
Mhm,
phenomenal people that I've gotten to know, and these are people who are creative, and people who are creative not just because they want to sit in a room and write neat things, but they want to be able to share their vision of cool stuff with people. And when I say the vision, I mean there's a lot of people who feel like the way we tell stories can and should be more immersive in ways that
mhm,
are really neat. People that want to present the world in a way that is more, gosh, in a lot of ways, even though we got a lot of villains running around doing stuff, ways present the world in a way that is more reasonable, fair,
mm,
balanced. We got a lot
mhm,
of LGBTQ characters that have come to the forefront in our games, not in a way that makes them stand out for their differences, but make it clear that they're just people and
mhm.
can be accepted that way. Um, I think that type of caring is something that you don't see a lot, and the fact that I got to work next to a lot of people who feel that way is one of the things I'm going to miss the most. So,
Well, hopefully,
I
you
mean,
can
that's
bring
top
some of
top as
that
a
to your
people.
next company too, right?
That's the hope. All right, I don't know
Yeah,
what I'm going to
yeah,
see there. We'll find out when I do.
yes.
I'll find out when I do, and I'll tell you. But we won't be able to podcast the digital
Oh,
divination about it.
yeah.
You'll be
No,
off to
for
better
sure.
digital divination things.
Yes. Well, wow. Will I be allowed to talk about anything you could talk to me about without you here, though?
Oh yeah, I know.
I
I
don't
mean, I
know.
don't see why not. Right.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've been well trained to do from
Yeah.
well, not just my legal background, but also working
Yeah.
at Paizo, is to be
Yeah.
careful about not giving
Right.
spoilers even to people.
Yeah.
I had to be perfectly honest. My wife probably knows more than a strict NDA would allow her to know,
Mm.
but
Mm.
because we're at the dinner table and so on. Um, but anyway, the but for the most part, no. I mean, I won't be telling you anything that isn't going to be uh, public knowledge anyhow. So you say
Oh, no,
whatever
I
you'd
just
like that's going to be public knowledge.
I mean more about, like, so stuff we can't talk about now, but maybe people are
Yes,
interested in later
like
on.
where I
That's all.
am and who I'm working
Yeah,
with and
yeah,
so on.
what you're
Yeah,
doing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, 'cause we definitely don't wanna dwell on the past here, but I think a little closure on that, might be good. That's all. 'Cause since
Well, yeah,
we are this we're recording this before PaizoCon, it'll be posted after PaizoCon, but before you start because 'cause you'll be on vacation still.
right,
So it's just kind
right.
of a weird timing for that, and we can't have you on spilling the beans after you start. So it's just
And I'm not gonna dial in
yeah.
from France. So
Yes. So it's like, okay, this is what we get. This is what we get.
well, this is
Is
good.
it?
This and we've
It,
we've had to do a little bit of this before, where we've
yeah.
broadcast. Normally, we're recording, and it's going to be broadcast like the very next day or something like
Yeah.
that. So we
Some
can have
couple
things that
days.
are
Yeah.
very timely. Um, and that's not on you. We're a little ahead, more ahead. Not quite as I think we've been further ahead than this, but not much more in the past, right?
Yeah. This
Sometimes we'll
is
do it the day before. Sometimes we do it
usually
the weekend
before. That was the typical
before. Yeah,
thing. You Saturday or Sunday before. Then when
right,
our because we had a Monday or Tuesday initially where I posted it. That shifted to Thursday. So then we kind of shifted Monday or Tuesday to record, depending on because we have games on Monday and Tuesday. So depending on
right, right.
what games are doing it afterwards and things like that. So I'm really hoping that my next host is as flexible. I interviewed a couple people. I'll be honest, trying to fill his position, and I had one person rise to the top of the 2, um,
Of both of
of
everybody
both,
that you've
um,
interviewed.
and, we seem to get along well, but I just I don't know how it's gonna go, so hopefully, after a couple episodes, we're able to dial it in. But it's somebody it's, Jason Keeley.
He is a just an excellent guy. I mean, not only is he just really interesting, but he obviously he knows Starfinder,
Yeah.
right? Better than he's one of the top, I guess, 4 people on the whole planet that know Starfinder the best. Um, the I've had the good fortune to work with him in the last 3 years for PaizoCon. We do a puzzle hunt every year,
Mhm,
and for the first, I think we're in the 6th year of the puzzle hunt. But for the first 3 years, it was Jason Keeley and Joe Piscini doing it
mhm.
themselves, and they let me join them a few years ago. And oh my goodness, that is sitting at the feet of masters, right? Who know how to put a puzzle together. Um, and I've learned a lot from both of them in the past couple of years of putting the puzzle hunt together. Just this last year, the upcoming puzzle hunt, about which I shall spoil nothing for people that haven't yet to play it.
Yeah.
Although by the time this comes out, people will have already played it. So anyway, one of the puzzles that I put together, I the I think logically the puzzle worked very well together, and I was struggling a little bit with how to present it. That is to say, how you give that just the couple sentence introduction to a puzzle
Mhm.
have to be very well crafted, because they have to give you enough information about what you're about to solve that you have a direction, preferably a couple of different directions that you can head at, that you can kind of start to approach the puzzle. But without giving enough away that it sort of leads you too directly to the answer. There's an art to that, and I had never realized how difficult that really was until working with Jason Keeley about putting together one of the introductions for one of the puzzles that I contributed to PaizoCon this year. It was just so much better. Like the first time, and then one of the advantages, we're working on this in a Google document, so I can see him typing it, and I can kind of see his thought process. He's like da 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 da, and then he'll backspace over stuff and then go again. And it was like watching art happen, right? Because I'm like, oh wait, that'd be a good idea. Wait, why are you deleting that? Okay, now, oh, I see what you're doing. Oh, that's beautiful. That's exactly the kind of thing that we were going to try to lead them to, but without giving them too much of an answer. Anyway, it was a really good experience. Very, very good learning experience. I like working with Jason quite a lot.
Well, when I mentioned, to you that he's somebody that I would consider and I asked you to kinda get a temperature on him and see how he'd feel about it, he was very excited to chat with me, so scheduled right away, and we talked quite a bit about stuff. Um, I don't have the same rapport with him that I had with you from the beginning because we had actually played for a couple years even
Right,
before
right,
we started doing this, so we kinda knew each other pretty well, and I've only really talked to him once or twice prior to this. I tried to tell him, kinda what we did, and basically the show's about having fun and talking about what we wanna talk about, kinda loosely Starfinder related, and, he was all for that. He's his focus has been on heavy on Starfinder for a long time, and I don't really wanna get into a lot of heavy duty detail, nuts and bolts, nitty gritty stuff with him. Just kinda more fun facts or, something's going on and Starfinder wise that we think we wanna talk about, more in line with what we do, and hopefully it'll take form however form it takes. It'll be different than our show,
right.
but,
Well, I mean,
you
it'll
know,
necessarily, because he doesn't have chickens to talk about, for one thing.
I did not know that. Now this changes a couple things, so
Oh, this oh,
yeah.
this may change you. I have chicken news. I so rarely have chicken news, but
Okay.
we failed to close up the coop a couple nights ago, and some predator got 3 of our 11 chickens.
Oh,
And we
wow.
know this because we found 2 dead chickens,
Yeah.
and one was entirely missing.
Wow.
So we are
But
down to 8 something.
it killed them, but it didn't take off with them, though.
I think it took off with one of them, and maybe was planning to come back for the others.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Um, but then didn't. My top suspect would be a raccoon.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna, guess as well, so Wow, and your dogs aren't keen, like, they're not outside, so they don't
They're
even
not outside. They're
do that kind of
in fact, if our very little dog were outside, the raccoon might have
stuff.
taken her.
Yes, yes. I was thinking more Pepper. Pepper is like I think would be
Yes.
very excited to, uh, keep an eye on other critters, I because Pepper doesn't care about the chickens, right?
Yeah, that's actually weird. Pepper sort of
Yeah,
assumed that the chickens, it didn't take her long to realize the chickens belong there.
yeah,
And, she's quick to, run after any rabbit or squirrel or any other
yeah,
animal, but she's not going to run. She doesn't run after the chickens.
yeah.
The chickens even get out and around the yard, and Pepper's just sort of, all right, well,
Mhm.
I guess you belong here, right?
Yeah. Well,
Gotten used to them.
hopefully, Jason will have some other critter to talk about. Our first episode is pretty much gonna be me getting to know him about this kinda stuff, and him getting to know me because it's a two-way street, if we're gonna talk about stuff, we have to have some idea where we're each coming from, so,
Who you are and what you do and
yes.
what you like. Yeah,
Mhm,
we have. I'll tell you a quick story about my time with him. The Jason and Joe Piscini and I all went just before the pandemic. We drove up to Vancouver, Canada, for a uh, gaming convention. And this was more of a board game convention than a role play convention. And part of the reason that we went up there is because they gave us, I think they comped our admission in order to help with a couple of mega games. And I don't know if you've ever attended these or seen these. They have them at big
mm.
conventions sometimes. A mega game is sort of like a more game focused kind of LARP where there will be
Oh, okay.
50 or 80 players or something like that. And
Wow.
they ran two of these. One of them is based on a board game called Scythe that was sort of set in that world. It was really interesting. The other one, called Lights in the Sky, it was set in the Cold War, and all of the different players were representatives of different countries, Russian representatives or
Mhm,
German representatives from one side, Americans, British, French. And over Berlin, there had been aliens seen, like lights in the sky. And how did this destabilize the Cold War? And what do the different sides think about that? And so, if you were playing this game, your side got kind of a list of knowledge that you have and goals you want. It's a matter of talking to sort of other people in order to figure out what they know. But because the Iron Curtain is in place, if you were one of the Russian players, you couldn't just walk over and talk to one of the British players, right? You had
right,
to meet and exchange information via your spies, who were other players across the Berlin Wall. And they needed a lot of people to sort of help run the thing, make sure that people were communicating the way they were supposed to across the Berlin Wall, deliver messages up to the big board that like an interactive that might have been
right,
at a
right.
at a convention, to show some of the things. Um, to interface with the players that were playing aliens,
Mhm,
and what they were going to be doing. So that was actually, it was, they needed a lot of people to help out, and it was so much fun to see that from behind the scenes
mhm,
that we got back. And one of the first things we are talking about on the drive home was like, oh, we could totally do this at like PaizoCon. We could do like a mega game like this.
yeah,
Maybe we set it in the packed worlds where all of the players are different, representing different, the Vescarium or different worlds of the
mhm,
packed worlds,
mhm.
and they all have their own goals, and there's some event that's happening and stuff like that. And we thought this sounded like it could be a lot of fun. We did some initial planning about this, and then the pandemic shut everything down. So maybe someday there will be an awesome metagame like this at PaizoCon, but we wanted to, then the global pandemic wouldn't allow it.
Well, that sounds kinda I remember at Gen Con, they kinda have like a indoor LARP game that's kinda like that, um, but I didn't do it. They had different, like, time periods where you could go in and wasn't able to make that, so no, that sounds pretty cool, and I actually think road tripping with those 2 guys would be a lot of fun too, you know?
That was really neat. Yeah, they had it is characteristic of me joining Joe and Jason on stuff that they handle it and I'm kind of along, right?
Yeah.
Like they'd figured out the place that we were staying and the game, convention we were going to, and how we would get from the Airbnb we were staying to the
Mhm.
con and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm with you guys. I'll just follow along. It was actually a lot of fun. They're great people to road trip with and chat with. It was neat.
Well, hopefully we'll develop a good rapport. If not, I'll have to go to the secondary person and, we'll have to see.
Who knows? And if that person doesn't work out, if you have to get down the,
Yeah,
if you have to start really working down the list, John, then maybe it's not them. Maybe it's.
I know. Well, when you first told me that you weren't gonna be able to do this, the first thing I thought is, "Man, I don't wanna do this with anybody else." And then when I told Ryan that you were gonna have to leave and, he suggested, "Why don't you just get Stephanie?" And I said, "Yeah, that might actually be fun." So I started thinking who might be fun to talk with,
Mhm.
and quite frankly, being a Starfinder person, to get a senior developer at Starfinder, I don't think I could do much better than that, just from a personal, like, wanna ask questions and figure stuff out kinda thing. Um, and hopefully our audience will find that interesting as well, and, yeah, we'll see. We'll give it a go. If it lasts, 2 episodes or, another 100, either way, we'll just see it through.
Well, yeah, it's got to get 42, right? Because that'll get you to episode 100.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Do that at
Like,
least. Do 42
yeah,
more.
42.
And then after
Right.
that, you can do whatever you want. You can try to get to 200, 300, after that. But episode 100, it can happen. You can make it happen.
Yeah, those are such big. Well, Ron, it's been a pleasure working with you here for over 2 years on the No Direction Network, and I'm glad that we'll still be gaming, probably at least 2-ish times a week. So
kind
I'll
of
still
kind of a
get a
lot.
chance
Yeah,
to
it's
see it,
great.
yeah. Well, it's like we're in 3 games and they meet every other week, so it's like,
Right.
just depending on the schedule. And like, I in the message I sent you, I still wanna have you guys over and let's have a, summer get together and kinda celebrate your going on to other things, and, I'd say goodbye to you if anybody needs to do that, but, it'll it's been good. It's been fun. It's
Yeah.
really opened my eyes how much fun a podcast can be, and this is not like work to me. Whereas the other ones I do, I actually have to do a lot of work for them. This is just like fun. This has
The
been a lot of
editing and
fun.
all that
Yeah.
is well, this is also kind of quick. This is bite sized, right? People that are listening to this are like, well, I could listen to those guys for 30, 45 minutes and that's kind of it, right? It's not like
Yeah.
a hour and a half game session or a 4 hour game session like some other podcasts do. But
Oh, yeah. I told my students that, some people have 4-hour podcasts or 2-hour podcasts, and they said, "You guys listen to that?" And they said, "No way. They're not. It's way too long."
well, and I
Yeah.
don't know. People might do this to our podcast. I don't know because we
Yeah.
both have kind of deeper voices. Some people I know listen to really long podcasts. They'll play them on like 1.5 times speed
Yes.
so they can
Yes.
get through them quicker. I wonder if anybody does that and what they think my voice sounds like if they're consistently listening to it at faster than 1 time speed. I don't know.
Well, if they're doing that, that won't work as well as with Jason because he has a little bit higher pitched voice, and
A little bit higher
I
voice.
don't.
Yeah, well, that'll
Yeah.
get them to maybe to slow down a little bit and take
Yes.
everything in, learn a lot more. They
Yes. Alright.
great.
Well, Ron,
But this has been great for me. I really appreciate you
yeah.
having me on and doing a lot of the heavy lifting as far as the recording and the posting. The headphones I've got on and the microphone I'm talking into right now are courtesy of you, making sure that my equipment is up to par. So thank you very much. This has been a lot of fun
Okay.
doing this with you, John. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm John.
And I'm Ron, and this is Digital Divination.